very proud of is that we have a lot of young people in this country. There's a lot of youth dividend, we say, but that dividend depends a lot on how we educate them. So the education system in the K through 12, school level, a lot of people criticize it. But even in higher education, we don't rank among the top 100 universities in the world. Why don't we rank, and what do you think is a reason for that?
Rajiv, let me first give you data.
Okay.
I know people criticize India and the Indian education system, but none of the people who criticize us have ever handled the scale that we do.
Okay.
We have 265 million young children in school, class 1 to 12. No country has 265 million children, including China. The United States certainly doesn't have it. Europe doesn't have it. It's a
They don't
joke.
even have that many people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now we have 800 universities, 51,000 colleges, 35 million young people in college with a gross enrollment rate of 24. That means only 24% of children in the young age group of 18 to 23 go to college. And this is growing at about 3.5%, it will go to 70 million. I think at 35 million, we are probably the largest university system in the world. Maybe we have overtaken China or will overtake China. Every year, about 8 million young people graduate. Now, no country graduates that kind of students. Let's understand scale first.
8 million graduates.
8 million graduates every single year out of India. Now, no system graduates that much.
Very impressive, yes.
And no system has grown so fast. All right? So we have to take cognizance of that.
Yes.
That unless you manage a huge system like India and you manage it well and show results like India has done, if you just point fingers and criticize, I don't think it's worthy of criticism. Having said that, we need to answer the quality question. India has gone for scale to educate everybody, and quality has fallen behind. Now, if you look at the world ranking system, the top universities in the world 100 or the world 200 are primarily from Europe or America, or maybe some from China. Now, if you look at the rankings methodology, the highest quantum of marks is given for research and then for outreach. Now, they're all research-based universities funded largely by public sources or by private endowments, right? But India's education system is a teaching-based education system. We don't have large public source of funding for research. So they're all teaching institutions. The focus is on teaching, not on research. Maybe 50, 60 institutions are focused on research. After independence, Jawaharlal Nehru did what I think is a cardinal error in the higher education system by creating a set of national laboratories called the CSIR, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and the DRDO, Defense Research Development Organizations, separate from the universities. So a lot of money goes into defense research, a lot of money goes into other applied research to these institutions. I think between two of them, they probably get about maybe 15,000 crores, maybe $2.5 billion every single year. And the fruit of the research does not go to universities. They are ivory towers, they don't talk to other universities, students don't come and do research there, they don't get fellowships. Even though CSIR has now started to take 1,000 PhDs a year, try to be a university itself. So there's a diverse. Now, unless you solve this problem of public funding for research, align this labs to universities, you're not going to solve the problem of being in the top 100 or the top 200. All right.
Right.
And the next point, the last point is that public endowments have not come in because these are largely state universities, even though in the recent past we got private universities, and being state, they look down upon the private sector. They don't want to go reach out to them. They don't want to talk to them. They don't know how to market. They depend on government for most of the money. So there's an attitude problem. They don't even link up with the alumni. Alumni are ignored. Alumni don't sit on the board, even the government is trying to do now. So we got these two fundamental issues. But if you take teaching and the quality of teaching, the top 25% of these universities are very, very good. To give an example, we have 186,000 Indian students studying in the United States. 60% of them are doing graduate studies or PhD studies. 60%, some of the best universities in the world. 60% of all masters and PhDs in computer science are Asians. A large number of them are Indians. We have 400,000 Indian students studying in all universities. In the United States, we're the second largest ethnic group from outside the US after China to come and study in America. Now, they're all positives. How will our students get into the top US universities coming from an alien country unless they're very good and they've been taught well?
These are wonderful points. So first, the scale and the quantity must be taken into consideration, because after we got rid of the colonization, we have to first educate a whole lot of people. That's our first responsibility. As far as quality is concerned, one factor is that Nehru separated research from teaching. Whereas in the US, they are integrated, so young people get to be with research programs, and research programs can have a feeder, a pipeline of young people coming in. By separating these two was a very big blunder, and hopefully they will merge them.
Well, I don't know. They're not, because they become self-contained island, they're beyond redemption, so hopefully something will happen. Another issue about what Nehru did was not to give primary education to the mass of people. Our literacy today is about 75-77%. China is about 96%. When Mao came to power in 1949, he said women hold up half of heaven, educated China's women. And today you see that Chinese women are 65% in the workforce, India's women are 25% in the workforce. So our women are not educated as much as the men. And because they're not educated, there are more children and the population has grown. Now, if you're educated a woman, give them primary education, which is the first priority of a government, made them literate after independence. If Nehru had done that, we would be a very different country.
Right.
Population will be smaller. We won't have so much of poverty.
Right.
We'll be much more empowered.
Right.
We'll be a very different society. We are paying for Nehru's sins of omission for not having in the first decade educating and giving literacy to the Indian population, and what is more, allowing the private sector to do it.
Yes.
Because of this fetish for the commanding heights of the economy, the private sector, which was involved in education before the British came, and you know that we had a great education system.
Yes.
Macaulay's letters are evidence.
Yeah.
You know, we are not allowed to start schools. Even now, Tuji, because I'm a Hindu, I can't start a school. Only minorities have special right to start a school. Because I'm a Hindu, I'm deemed to be majority. The government discriminates against me, allowing me to start a school. Under Article 29 and 30, the minorities, including linguistic minorities, I'm a linguistic minority, we can start schools without great hassle. But if for a majority community, a Hindu, which is 79% of India's population, start a school, they harass you, because they only want government schools. The private ones are come up for other reasons, they come up. But we could have had much greater number of private schools by philanthropists in the first decade of independence, second decade. We could have done so much better.
So it's all ridiculous Nehruvianism, that, you know, certain people are allowed to start schools, certain people are not allowed to start school. In a country where we need more schools, more education, everybody should be able to start schools. If there's a demand and public wants to study there, they should be able to start schools. So these are some major reforms that are needed. Now let me ask you this: one of the good things in the US at least is that there can be a lot of private endowment of chairs and programs, and the government has nothing to do with it. So you could go to a university, negotiate a deal, set up a chair, fund it. So now in India, is it possible that Infosys can start an Infosys chair for research in IITs and get those students trained and all that, or is that not allowed?
It's possible. In Infosys done it, many people have done it. I think it's possible, but they're not doing it in a big way. I think it must be done in a big way. But Rajiv, please understand one thing. In the US, the alumni fund chairs.
Big
companies
time.
do.
Huge time, yes.
But here, for the alumni to fund chairs, the faculty should interact with the alumni.
Yes.
Go talk to them, market with them, reach out to them, invite them to join the board, participate. Here, these IITs and others don't talk to alumni in the same manner. Look at IIT Chennai. IIT Chennai has got a strong alumni program, with Junjunwala and others doing a wonderful work, and they've got a fantastic number of money coming in. If all IITs do that, all state universities do that, all the union institutes do that, it'll be fantastic. ISC can do much, much more. But they're not tuned to market. The faculty there want to be cloistered, they don't want to reach out. When I was at Infosys heading HR and education research, as we called it, you know, I never had Indian university come and approach us for chairs or whatever it is. We had Cambridge, we had the US universities and Europeans come every year and talk to us, say, why don't you collaborate? ISC came only twice in about 15 years. So there's a problem about the market. See, you have to reach out.
Yeah.
You have to interact.
Yes.
Because alumni love the university.
Yes, yes.
I think it's happening now in some way, but I think we need to do it much bigger.
Yes. And you know, in the US, because they are not government officials, government employees, these university people, the university encourages them to go out and market and solicit. So you keep getting notices and solicitations, letters and all kind of programs to alumni to raise money. But I think in India, the funding comes from government. It's more about you have a job security, lifetime employment. So
But Madhu, there's an attitude problem. Because these are all public sector. They have an attitude, private sector is bad, I don't want to reach out to them, they make money. They make money,
Yeah.
profit.
Yeah,
It's the
that-
Nehruvian disdain
Yeah.
for economic well-being. They have this kind of a complex. They make money.
Yeah.
So there's an attitude problem.
Right.
But some of them are coming out. Some
Yeah.
of them are doing it. I hope they do more. And in fact, the best way to tackle this is to make sure that they get salary for only 10 months. Instead of 12 months as in the US. For 2 months they're on their own, they have to reach out, and the university focuses on outreach. I think we have to change the focus, make the universities more autonomous. Today the university is under the stranglehold of the government. Government dictates, government controls. Because in any system of higher education, government has 3 roles: policy maker, regulator, and provider of services. All the 3 roles are missed. They make policy not for the country, not for all of us, but for their own institutions, to protect them from anything, because they never hold them to account. As a regulator, they discriminate against the private sector. They make sure they don't get enough money for funding. UGC and AIC don't give money to the private sector like they give to the public sector. They discriminate, and they put too many rules and regulations. But if a state university does badly, they do nothing to control it, nothing to do anything, because they don't want to do it. But the private sector, they go after them, they issue unnecessary regulation. As the provider of education, the government schools suck. 25-30% are good, 20% are possible, 45-50% are bad. But nothing happens to teachers, nothing happens. There's no consequence. Our children get bad education in government school, there's no consequence. All right, in the private sector, because you pay fees, if you don't get education, you don't go. And the private colleges, if you don't get good education, you don't go. But in the government universities, you get 0 marks, 0 pass to the university, perfectly fine. Nothing happens to you. Your salary comes, your pension comes, there's no action taken against you. So government as a provider of services, education services, is not held accountable like the private sector. So somehow this has become a Sarkari country
Yeah.
which owns this country,
Right.
which dictates to all of us as citizens,
So some kind of
and they're
Sarkari-
beyond control and beyond accountability.
Right. Sarkari mediocrity. That's the
Sarkari
whole-
mediocrity.
That is very.
And then they have disdain for the private sector. I was in Delhi and they were telling me, oh, that Halwai started a university. There is a Halwai who started a university. He's got 65,000 young people.
Yeah, so this
they're
is
coming
good.
voluntarily and they're paying money and fees.
Yeah.
That means they're getting something in return, they're getting good education, but the policymaker, देखो हलवाई ने शुरू किया है. What's wrong with the halwai doing it?
Yeah.
What's wrong with anybody doing
He's
it?
a smarter
We
guy
are
than
very
me.
proud. We
Yeah.
have a chai wala as a prime minister.
Yeah.
I'm so proud
Yeah,
that
yeah.
an ordinary person born to poverty who sold tea on the railway station has now become a prime minister by getting the votes of the people of this country,
Right.
rather than being born to privilege,
Right.
cloistered in New Delhi, living off public taxpayers' money.
Right.
Now, that's the country we are. It's a meritocracy. But we need the same meritocracy in higher education, which is not there.
Yeah. This is very good. Very good points. Excellent points. So